afternoon. Welcome to the City of Murfreesboro Planning Commission meeting for November 18th, 2020. We'll call our meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and in accordance with the Governor's executive order allowing electronic participation in public meetings, two members of the Planning Commission, Warren Russell and Ken Halliburton, will be participating in the meeting electronically. So we will take all our votes by roll call, as we've done a couple of times in the past when we have members participating electronically. So with that, we will start today with our consent agenda. Begin with the crossings of Three Rivers, re-subdivision of lots 9 and 10, final plat for 4 lots on 0.36 acres, zoned PRD located along Hospitality Lane. Three Rivers Rutherford LLC is the developer. Gerald T. Pavis, final plat for 2 lots on 6.34 acres, zoned RS10, located along Rucker Lane. Gerard and Christine Pavis, developer. Item C is the Capital Business Park third re-subdivision of Lot 2, final plat for 3 lots on 14.56 acres, zoned EAC in unincorporated Rutherford County, and served as an outside the city sewer customer, located along Epps Mill Road and Capitol Way. Roads Development Company is the developer. Item D is Valley Farms, Section 3, preliminary plat for 58 lots on 14.62 acres, zoned PUD in unincorporated Rutherford County and served as an outside the city sewer customer, located along Dunbar Lane and Valley Farms Drive. Valley Farms Group, LLC, is the developer. Item E is Carter's Retreat, Section 2, preliminary plat for 150 lots on 60.96 acres, zoned PRD, located along Braidable Pike, LGI Homes, developer. Item F is Broad Street Development, project number U-R10, Tennessee 6-1, re-subdivision of lots 23-B1 and 23-C, final plat for 1 lot on 1.62 acres, zoned heavy industrial, located along Hickerson Drive and South Front Street. The Palmer Family Real Estate Partnership is the developer. And that is the end of our consent agenda. Have anybody that would like any of these items removed for further discussion? If not, we're ready for a motion. Just need a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so we will call the roll now. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Marina.
Commissioner Garland.
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton.
Aye.
Commissioner Martin.
Aye.
Commissioner Russell.
Aye.
Commissioner Salas.
Aye.
Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Next, we have our Gateway Design Overlay items. We have 3 items today for review. We have the Hunt Pool and Spa Lot 1, initial and final design and site plan review for parking lot addition. For an existing salons by JC on 2 acres, zoned light industrial and GDO 1, located at 708 North Thompson Lane. Equitable Property Company, LLC, is the developer. Ms. Green, hello.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Our first item under the Gateway portion of our agenda is for you to consider a parking lot addition. Planning staff is presenting this to you today with the request that you consider initial and final in today's meeting because there are no structures involved. As you know, initial design review's primary focus is to get feedback regarding the architecture and any changes that may need to be incorporated into the design. For this site plan that I'm about to discuss, the only structure that's changing is the existing dumpster enclosure is being moved, but it'll be consistent with what is there and what we would normally expect. So this is a parking lot addition. It is on a subdivision called Hunt Pool and Spa Lot 1, but also used to be the location of the Hunt Pool and Spa. Several years ago, it was converted to Salons by JC, which is a barber beauty salon according to our zoning ordinance, but it's a type of use where independent service providers can rent their own smaller spaces, and the people who own and operate this have needed parking for quite some time, even though they, according to the calculations presented to us, meet our parking standards as they are. They have found that their business is successful and they really want to add some additional parking. They're not adding parking along the entire undeveloped area, and I've got on the screen the ortho photo that shows the existing building. The parking that was there for the Hunt Pool and Spa, you can kind of see, and then this little new area was what was added when it was converted. And the site plan will show a parking lot going to about here, and so they're adding some additional spaces. I have been able to look at the plan and see that those parking spaces do meet our standards. They meet our separation requirements in the gateway, and the dumpster closure does as well. At the request of staff, the engineer added a sidewalk connection to the back of the property because our gateway standards say that you should connect to pedestrian ways. I was asking them to connect to that Greenway system that's on hospital property, so they added that. But after seeing it, Mrs. Knoll and I researched the property and realized that the Greenway actually easement doesn't come to this property, so there's no way to connect to the Greenway. So now our recommendation is going to be to take it off. They added it because it was just a standard policy, but then seeing that Greenway easement kind of serpentines around the perimeter of property, and it's 15 feet wide, and it really just follows that. The Greenway, there's no real easy way to make that connection. Just to the north, we call it Swanson's building, or the multi-use building to the north does have a connection to the Greenway there, but we don't see that one's feasible now. So our comments changed, and now we're asking for them just to take that sidewalk off. They put it on at our request just to kind of accomplish that interconnectivity that we generally are searching for. The site plan does demonstrate compliance with our minimum standards, so we'd ask that you consider approving it. And as I mentioned, if you're comfortable with it, we'd ask that you do initial and final just in one meeting, since it is just a parking lot addition. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, and I think they do have a representative here this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Green regarding this request?
If none, I move to approve for initial and final design without the connectivity to the Greenway, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we will call the roll. Ms. Rush?
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Okay, our next item is Amelia's Closet at Jackson Heights. Initial and final design and site plan review for a change of use from automotive repair to philanthropic institution on 12.7 acres, zoned CH and GDO 4, located along Medical Center Parkway. Jody Powers, developer. And Ms. Green.
Thank you again. This next item is for a change of use for an existing structure that is located on the south side of Medical Center Parkway, just before Northwest Broad Street. This structure, you're probably more familiar with, is the old Reox building. So it's a tire change store or automobile services, and it's a part of the Jackson Heights Plaza. And if that's not familiar, then it's the building right behind Toots. So it's an existing structure which the developer is wishing to acquire to create a business here, which is a little unusual, and I'll explain it in just a minute. They're wanting to just make some changes to the structure as little as possible, and so it does not conform with our gateway standards. In many of the comments you can see that the design layout doesn't meet our gateway standards. But because it's not a new build, if it's there, we were saying that it can continue to operate, and that what she's doing, it actually improves the building even though it's not up to our standards. We would expect in the future at some point the building to not exist anymore and it's a new development, but Jackson Heights Plaza, I've heard, used to be the place to cruise town, Murfreesboro, and think we're all familiar with it, but it's got some age on it.
The
And-
only place.
the only place. And so what they're doing, I think that you'll think is an improvement to the structure. But Mrs. Powers participates in several nonprofit businesses and has different missions and motivations. And Amelia Closet is one that currently she has, where they look to help dress people looking for employment. And so we've classified the use on this, at this building, as a philanthropic institution because there's no real primary use, but the overall goal is to train people for employment. On this site, they're proposing public assembly, so a rental space if you wanted to use the inside. They're proposing a restaurant. They're proposing convenience market with a pickup window and auto detailing inside only, no washing of the outside. So you can see those are a bunch of different things. They don't all kind of fit together, and so we struggled a bit on how to classify it, but I think the most reasonable way was to consider it a philanthropic institution because this is a nonprofit and its overall goal is for training in these different type of businesses or businesses that she thinks she can train potential employees so that they can get that experience and then have a job and provide some meaningful income to themselves or their families. So there's a phasing plan as well. Not everything's proposed to be done at once. If you drove by the site, you've probably seen that very large sign that has already been painted for this business. And so you may have seen some work go on. I wanted to present to you the option today, and it's completely your choice, but to consider initial and final in the same meeting. Unlike the previous one, there are structural or building changes, but I think those changes are probably not very significant because it's an existing structure. It has more to do with movable planters, adding some containers, and changing the roll-up windows and walls. And so I'd like for you to consider that if you after getting all the information, are comfortable with it. And then I have some images. I did ask for them because they are a part of the Jackson Heights Plaza. Jackson Heights development. It's not on a separate lot of record, but it's all on one lot, to look at integrating their colors with what you reviewed earlier this year. You may not remember, but in March, you reviewed plans for the Jackson Heights Plaza just to do a reface. They weren't really doing any additions or demolitions, but they were doing a reface in that. And our design guidelines and Gateway standards do say that you need to have a cohesive design. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but you can borrow things like colors or architectural features to create that campus-like effect. And so one of the comments that I provided back to the team was to integrate the Jackson Heights Plaza colors into the plan. So I've brought on the screen the plan, which may give you a little bit more information about the proposed site. I think that Mr. Mulchin is here for Mr. Taylor if you have any additional questions from them. And I'm not sure, Jody is here as well, and if you'd like to hear more from her, she's available as well. If you have any questions about the site plan, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I guess just let me know if you need anything.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Green or Ms. Powers or any of the development team? Just always excited to see improvement to existing old properties in town. So
Seems to be an improvement.
positive change.
What we see currently. So if there are no comments, I would move to approve for initial and final design, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Rush, if you'll call roll.
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Next, we have fountains at the Gateway, initial and final design and site plan review for a proposed fence on 12.7 acres zoned MU and GDO 3 located along Medical Center Parkway. Scott Graby is the developer. Ms. Green.
Thank you. This final item is for you to consider the addition of a fence on the Fountains property. It's located in GDO 3, which did require DRC's approval as well. DRC have recommended approval of this addition of a fence. The project is located in the Fountains, and it's located north of Medical Center Parkway and was previously city-owned property. I've been working with Mr. Graby on a tenant he's looking at placing in one of his suites, which is for, and I don't completely understand it, but the state have temporarily changed their licensing requirements for schools due to the COVID-19 situation, and are allowing some more licenses that they wouldn't have before. And so this tenant would be a place where children who maybe are virtual or homeschooled during this time could come and work with people or take tests or that are led by proctors. So it's being licensed as a school. It's a temporary type of school allowed by the state of Tennessee, and Mr. Graby wanted to take advantage of that. He also wanted to take some of the open space and form open space along the building and fence it in for use by the school. And so that change of use of the open space, form open space, and the addition of the fence did require DRC and Planning Commission approval. Because it is a fenced-in area, we are also recommending initial and final in this meeting. It's kind of a theme today, but these things I thought we could probably streamline our process and manage our time if you wanted to consider it initial and final in the same meeting. There's no recreational equipment in this area. There's no big red slides or orange cones or anything like that. It's just an open area. I think DRC was concerned with that. The fire marshal initially was concerned because it was blocking some entrances and didn't have a gate and the type of safety elements that we would typically need, and Mr. Graby was able to amend the plan and satisfy Fire Marshal Pease. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I will just state real quick that if any of you all have the opportunity to go visit this area in the Fountains and see what he's doing with that space. I just several weeks ago happened to be there on another issue, and he toured me through some of this space, and it is really, really neat what he's doing in there. I was very impressed. So didn't realize it was going to have any kind of change of use or certainly anything like this, but I've seen it and I was really impressed. So.
My children like ice skating nearby.
Yes, definitely the ice skating out there is good, but this is more like a workplace for going to school, the areas where they can come in and do their at-home learning, but co-schooling, yes, instead of supposed to co-working, they're co-schooling. Be much more fun for them.
If there are no other comments or questions, I'll make a motion to approve initial and final, subject to all staff comments.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Rush, if you'll call roll.
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Motion passes. Next on our agenda is our new business. We have one item there, and it is a street renaming to rename approximately a 1,600-foot-long segment of Shelbyville Pike to South Church Street. City of Murfreesboro Planning Department is the applicant, and I believe Mr. Blomley remotely is going to present this. Is that true, Mr. Blomley?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Planning Commission. Our one item under new business today is our street renaming. It's a segment of Shelbyville Pike south of Savannah Ridge Drive and north of Joby Jackson Parkway. Recently, our GIS and County 911 advised us that there were some areas that we needed to clean up from a street naming standpoint in order to implement our new 911 dispatch software. This segment of Shelbyville Pike has been identified as one of those segments. Just as some background, the very northern portion, the Camino Real and the gas station at this corner both have South Church Street addresses, but the remainder of the addresses in between those businesses and Joe B. Jackson Parkway have Shelbyville Pike addresses. So it's really caused some confusion over the years about where the street name South Church Street ends and where the Shelbyville Pike street name begins. So what we're looking to do, not only from a practical standpoint, but also from a standpoint of making sure that it's in good order for our software, is to create a hard break at the major intersection of Joe B. Jackson Parkway and 231, so that it's very easily recognizable where the street name changes, and so that we can eliminate any confusion. The only addresses that would need to change if the Planning Commission approves this street name are the addresses on the west side of Shelbyville Pike, which are in the unincorporated county. And Mr. Doug DeMasi has so generously volunteered some of his time this afternoon to be with us and answer any questions if you have them about the county's protocols for changing addresses. The only addresses in the city that would be affected are the addresses for the marketplace at Savannah Ridge, which have been issued, but none of the buildings have been constructed yet. So those would actually be very easy to change because they're proposed addresses. As you know, the subdivision regulations identifies the Planning Commission as the body that has the official authority over street naming issues within the city of Murfreesboro. Back in early 2019, you adopted a policy that states that street renaming requests shall not be considered unless they're in the public interest, such as in conjunction with a road construction project or due to a need because of emergency services issues. We feel that this definitely qualifies and is consistent with the policy that was adopted by the Planning Commission last year. Historically, we have conducted a public hearing prior to taking action on any street renaming. We would ask that you schedule a public hearing for December the 2nd. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Blomley. Thank you, Mr. DeMasi, for being here today. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Blomley or Mr. DeMasi?
I'd just like to confirm that it's just 6 parcels that would be changing address, if I'm not mistaken there.
Mr. Salas, there would actually be a total of 9 parcels along the west side of Shelbyville Pike. And if y'all can see my arrow, it's north of Highfield, these 3 south of Highfield, and then these 3 north of Linford.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. DeMasi, anything you want to add or any comments you have for us? Since you took your time out to be here today, we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the invitation to come. Mr. Blomley summarized everything very well, so I don't have any other further comments. I would assume that after the public hearing, after it's been ratified by council, we would just coordinate on a time for the change, and then from there, we would do our notifications like we do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If there are no other comments, I'll move to set the public hearing for December 2nd.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Rush?
Commissioner Garland,
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Russell,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Aye.
Commissioner Wright,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Motion passes. Public hearing on December 2nd. Next item I'm showing is staff reports and other business. Not seeing anything here. Mr. Blomley, was that a...
I believe it might be.
Yes, ma'am. I have one item that I need you to consider scheduling for a public hearing.
Okay.
I believe you've received hard copies of a proposed ordinance amendment. It's a very simple. I know legal has stated that they don't like us to use the term housekeeping amendment, but I think this really is a housekeeping amendment. We're looking at possibly adjusting the compensation for both the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals. And Planning Commission there's nothing in our zoning ordinance that discusses compensation for Planning Commission, but there is, under the Board of Zoning Appeals section of the zoning ordinance, it does give a set amount, and we really want to get that out of the zoning ordinance and have it to where the City Council can review the compensation of the Board of Zoning Appeals by resolution. That'll really create a lot more flexibility and not create the need to do a zoning ordinance amendment every time we want to look at adjusting the compensation for the Board of Zoning Appeals members. So we've drafted a really simple zoning ordinance amendment that would adjust that to state that the Board of Zoning Appeals compensation would be set by resolution of the council. And then once we move forward with this ordinance amendment, then we can take a resolution. If it passes, we can take a resolution to council adjusting the Board of Zoning Appeals compensation. We'll need to schedule this for a public hearing, and we recommend December the 2nd so that we can begin to move forward with adjusting the board's compensation if council sees fit as soon as possible. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blomley. Any questions for Mr. Blomley?
Matthew, this is Ken. Being that I'm a member of the BZA, do I need to abstain from voting on this or no?
I would defer to Mr. Ives or Mr. Hankins, whoever is present today.
Commissioner Halliburton, this is Roman Hankins. Since this isn't an increase in compensation, I don't know that abstention would be mandatory. However, I do believe it would be permissive in this case.
So that means I don't need to be voting on it, correct?
I believe it's permissive. You could vote if you wanted to, or if you felt to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, you could abstain.
Then I will abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halliburton. Thank you, Mr. Hankins. Any other questions? And if not, we just need a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I moved that we schedule a public hearing for December 2nd.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Rush?
Commissioner Garland?
Aye.
Commissioner Halliburton is abstained. Commissioner Martin?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Aye.
Commissioner Salas?
Aye.
Commissioner Wright?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Motion passes. Public hearing December 2nd. All right. Thank you, Mr. Blomley. Did you have any
Thank you,
other?
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other staff reports or other business?
No, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I do have one reminder for the Planning Commission.
Yes, sir.
We have a continuing education opportunity tomorrow, a 2-hour session online. It's a virtual training opportunity regarding ethics. And I've heard this particular speaker speak before at a conference about ethics. She was very entertaining, and I would recommend her. So all of you it's free training. All of you are welcome to participate. It's tomorrow from 1 to 3. I sent you the link a few days ago. So it's a great way to get your hours if you're still in need of some hours. Even if you have all of your hours, you are more than welcome to participate.
Hey, Matthew, I think it's Friday, not tomorrow.
Oh, yes, Friday. Excuse me. Thank you, Margaret Ann. I appreciate that. It is Friday from 1 to 3. My apologies.
And you sent us a link, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and I'll be happy to send that back out if anybody needs it.
That would be great.
Sounds like we could use another link reminder.
Be happy to do it. I hate to flood y'all's email inboxes with too many emails, but y'all know I don't mind.
We appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Blomley, any other staff reports or other business today?
Got about 5 more if y'all have time.
Just because you're not here.
So that's all for me, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And if there is no other business, we do stand adjourned.